What is going on? Hello again, football fans. Chris Dunn here, head coach, general manager of the Sacramento Miners, back at it again with another episode of Miners Live. Appreciate everyone who stuck around over the holiday break, if you will, a little bit of downtime when the college season ended before the RFL season started. Plus, being right around the holiday season, it was a little bit difficult for everyone, myself included. So I appreciate all of you for sticking around, being supportive through the holiday break. Hope everyone had a great New Year's, all that good stuff. But really what we're here for, let's get right down to it. The RFL season is upon us. Week 1 is in the books. We had some very instrumental divisional matchups this weekend. A lot of teams had a force win auto buy, so we didn't get a chance to see every team in the league. We'll get a chance to see a lot of those teams this week in week 2. But just real quick, going to go back and look at the schedule that I have for this season for the Miners. Pull this up for you real quick. Week 1 was the Orlando Sentinels. We do have the off week this week in week 2. We do have the force win. So we will not be in action this week. We will be back in action at Austin to face the Armadillos in week 3, and then another force win in week 4. And then we head home for the first game of the year. Our first home game of the season is week 5 against the same Austin Armadillos that we'll be facing in week 3. So lots to talk about, lots to look forward to as we move forward in the season. But really, one thing that is on my mind that's been bothering me, and for those of you that watch the Top 100, if you had a chance to watch the RFL Live podcast and you saw Smitty and you saw myself on a couple of those episodes, you saw Bill, maybe you saw Rob on 1 or 2, and you saw Noah on there as well, breaking down the RFL Top 100. One thing that stood out, and I had a problem with this, and I addressed it briefly during the show, and I think I had some issues with Wi-Fi, whatever, and it ended up conking out. It almost looked like Smitty didn't want to hear what I had to say, so he just dropped me. I can assure you that's not what happened, but it did look rather funny. So I had a big problem, not with any of the players from my team that made the Top 100, right? Because it was great to see Chumlee in the Top 100. It was great to see Damani Manuel. You knew he was going to be in the Top 100. You knew he was going to be in the Top 50. It was just a matter of how high was he going to be. It was great to see Antonio Griggs. The man is a monster. Former defensive rookie of the year. Former defensive player of the year. Trying to get back to that form. Did a great job last season. Looking forward to what he can do this season as well to see if he can repeat on the production from last season. The guy on there that stood out the most to me was Derek Oliveiros. Now, I love me some Derek Oliveiros. I do think he's one of the top safeties in the RFL. I didn't anticipate him being that high on the list. I'd have to go back. I'm drawing a blank right now off the top of my head. Maybe I can get producer Rohan is here with me today, so he'll be helping out. Maybe I can get producer Rohan to try to do some reconnaissance work and find out at some point between now and the end of someone, if you can look back and remember where exactly Derek Oliveiros fell. But I was a little bit surprised when we got to, I think it was right around the 50 range. When we got right around the 50 mark, I didn't anticipate Derek Oliveiros' name at that point. So he was a pleasant surprise. But there was one name that really irked me. There was one name in particular that didn't make the Top 100, was not on the list. And I didn't understand why. I remember watching 100 through 80 and thinking, okay, he's not there. Good. He deserves to be in the top 70. Then I remember watching the 100 through 50 and he wasn't there. And I thought, okay, you know what? He's worthy of being a top 50 player in the RFL. I'm okay with it. This is actually interesting. This is exciting. Where is he going to land? I had conversations offline. Anthony Fry and I had many conversations offline. I can't believe we haven't seen him yet. Where is he going to be? We got all the way to the top 20. I was on air with Smitty during the top 20. He wasn't 20 through 10. I started borderline freaking out. Like, there's no way. I can't envision a scenario where he would have been voted in the top 10 players in the RFL. But the only thing less likely than him not being in the top 10 was him not being in the top 100 at all. So I need you and anyone else out there who has watched any RFL games to convince me of why in the world Buck Ulbrich was not a top 100 player in the RFL. You cannot convince me that he isn't worthy of being a top 100 RFL player. I believe I looked back and there were 10, there were 9 or 10, maybe 11 wide receivers in the top 100. And I think I've looked it over and saw about 3 that he's easily better than. And when this season's over, you will not be able to leave Buck Ulbrich out of any conversation about RFL top 100. You cannot do it. If you do it, you're lying. If you do it, you're not paying attention. And if you do it, you simply don't know anything about the RFL. If you don't have Buck Ulbrich in your top 100 RFL players, you're doing something wrong. Plain and simple. Turn your PlayStation off. Turn your PC off. And go outside and play in the dirt. Go find a neighborhood boy and go ride bikes. You don't know what you're doing. Buck Ulbrich is a top 100 RFL player. I would make an argument that he is a top 10 receiver in the RFL. And so I guess all that lead up to tell you that Buck Ulbrich, week 1, balled out. Quick recap, quick look at the game this week. 36-10, triumphant over the Orlando Sentinels. To be perfectly honest, the game did not start out very well. The game started out slow. Orlando got out to an early 3-0 lead. It was pouring. The weather was crap. Derek Oliveiros was ranked 43rd. Thank you, producer Rohan in the back. That's why you're here. The rain was crap. It was garbage. And it didn't look good early. No score offensively for us at the end of the first quarter. However, resiliency, little by little, the defense stepped it up. Chum Lee stepped it up. And by the end of the game, for those of you that were watching, I remember looking at a lot of you in the chat watching in the early going saying, wow, this is, this game's ugly. This is not what I anticipated. This weather must really be a factor. All of those things. And then by the third, it was a blowout. Antonio Griggs added a safety late in the fourth quarter just for an exclamation point to make it a 36-10 final score. Buck Ulbrich, as I mentioned, balled out in the game. He was the gold star player of the game. Every week, I'm going to have an offensive and defensive gold star. Buck Ulbrich, 7 catches, 125 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Absolute no-brainer for the gold star award. Chum Lee had 4 touchdowns. but he also threw 2 interceptions. So for me, it really was a no-brainer. Buck Ulbrich, 7 for 125 and 2. Book it. On the defensive side of the ball, I mentioned his name, Antonio Griggs. He's going to be a menace for every single team in the ARC South. He's going to be a menace for every single team in the ARC. And maybe, just maybe, there'll be one NRC team that gets to bear witness to how much of a monster Antonio Griggs can be. 6 TFLs, 4 sacks in the ball game. He was absolutely all over Deandre Wilkins Jr. You guys want to talk about Deandre Wilkins Jr., okay? Deandre Wilkins Jr. is this superstar quarterback for the Orlando Sentinels. They just inked him to a 7-year contract extension, right? Like, look at this deal. 7-year deal for Deandre Wilkins Jr. I forget the overall, what the end financials were on it, but it was a lot. They lock him up for 7 years. And then in his very first game, he goes out and throws up a stinker. My running backs had more yards on the ground than Deandre Wilkins had in the air. My running backs ran for more yards than Deandre Wilkins threw for. But yeah, okay. 7-year deal. Lock it up. Cheers. Thank you very much. Maybe that contract is going to come back to haunt Coach Tor. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a bad showing in a bad weather game. It was pouring rain in Orlando all day. You saw late night the Orlando Wizards and the Oklahoma City Lancers. That game was pouring rain too. Not only were both of those games pouring rain, but both home teams got absolutely waxed. It was just not a good showing for the Orlando Sentinels or the Orlando Wizards. 7 years, $283 million for Deandre Wilkins Jr. That's a lot of money. And when you give up that kind of money, 7 years, 283, you'd like to get a little bit better performance than you did out of Deandre Wilkins Jr. in week 1 at home. I get it. It was raining. I get all that. And the Miners defense is legit. Our defense is no joke. I've talked about this months back with producer Rohan. We talked about this defense and how it could be one of the best defenses in the league. I certainly think it's one of the best defenses in the ARC. Only 10 points allowed to the Orlando Sentinels and Deandre Wilkins Jr. after getting all that money. Not going to do it for me. For me, that's not going to win championships. However, there was some bad news. There was some bad news at the end of that game. For those of you that were watching, you saw at the very beginning of the second quarter, tight end Anthony Fry went down with an injury. It wasn't good. He went to the locker room and he didn't come back. At the end of the game, it was reported that he was going to miss 4 weeks. Doctor said he was going to miss 4 weeks. Now, after further tests, further observation, some good news is he's actually only going to miss 3 weeks. He's only going to miss the next 3 games. So the good news here for Anthony Fry fans, if you've got Anthony Fry on your fantasy team, okay, if you look at the schedule, week 2, he's not going to play. It's a force win. Doesn't matter. Week 3, he will miss on the road at the Armadillos, but week 4, he will miss. Doesn't matter. It's another force win. So the bad news is no Anthony Fry for 3 weeks. The good news is that's only one actual RFL game, which is a big deal because remember when the schedule was announced, I was on air with Smitty during RFL Live, and we talked about some of the key matchups. And I remember talking to him about the stretch of games from week 11 to week 14 that we are going to have to go through. Week 11 at the Red Dragons. They won the Relo Bowl 2 years ago. Week 12, the Dreadnoughts. They are a perennial contender to win the division. They won the division 2 years ago. We won the division last year. Week 13, the Celtic Tigers won the Relo Bowl last year. And then week 14, the Black Knights knocked us out of the playoffs in the first round last year. So week 11 to week 14, that stretch run right there, we face Relo champion 2 years ago, division winner 2 years ago, Relo champion this past year, and then the team that knocked us out of the playoffs. That's not going to be fun at all. So losing Anthony Fry for a few weeks at the beginning part of the season, which only turns out to be one actual RFL game, I'm okay with it. For those of you that know me, you know that I have talked up Jimmy Bean the entire offseason. Jimmy Bean got honorable mention for Offensive Rookie of the Year in the ARC. I believe he finished third in the ARC for Offensive Rookie of the Year for a tight end. And what did I do? I went out and replaced him with Anthony Fry, basically. I mean, that's what it's looking like, right? The guy got votes for Rookie of the Year, and I went out and I basically brought in a guy that's going to get more snaps than he is. But this is why you do things like that. Because when a guy gets hurt, you've got guys that can step up. What did Jimmy Bean do? He scored a touchdown. Buck Ulbrich had 2. Jimmy Bean had 1. And then, can I get a shout out to my boy Pavel Frederick? Pavel Frederick, welcome to the RFL, kid. 9th wide receiver taken in the draft. Pavel Frederick gets his first RFL touchdown. Super excited for him. I know he was watching the game. He was excited. Everyone who was watching the game was really excited for him. So special moment for Pavel Frederick. And let's not forget Jakari Torres. Okay, Jakari Torres was brought in as more of a change of pace back, if you will. Damani Manuel being the go-to guy. Damani Manuel being the speedster, the third down back, the pass catching back. And Jakari Torres being more of that short yardage, goal to go, change of pace type of guy. Jakari Torres ran the ball 20 times for 99 yards. First game in his RFL career. Let's just call it 100 yards. Pavel Frederick, first game in his RFL career. Touchdown. 5 catches, 55 yards. Nowhere to go but up. These guys are going to be absolute mainstays. I got all the criticism you could possibly imagine. Everybody criticizing me when I traded Deandre Machiavelli. How can you trade D-Mac? I don't understand. The guy had 3 touchdowns in week 1 last season. He was an absolute monster. I can't believe you would trade him. He's a superstar wide receiver. That's going to be such a dumb trade. You look so stupid. I even posted the poll on Twitter. I gave everyone the opportunity. Who got the better end of the deal? The Brooklyn Bulls, the Sacramento Miners, or was it even across the board? The majority said Brooklyn Bulls. Then after that, it was fair. Nobody said the Miners got the better end of the deal. What you don't realize, and this is the problem that I have with people who just jump to conclusions based on surface numbers. You looked at Deandre Machiavelli, and maybe you went on Daddy Leagues. Maybe you saw, maybe you knew, maybe someone told you. Maybe your boy down the street that you go bike riding with, maybe he told you that Deandre Machiavelli was an 85 overall and he was superstar dev. What you didn't take the time to look into was that he was a pending free agent, as is Damani Manuel and Buck Ulbrich and Last Chance and Griffin Whiteside, all pending free agents. Probably not going to be able to re-sign all of those guys. So I had to spend some time and prioritize who were the guys that I want to make sure I resign and who were the guys that are disposable, if you will. And I'm not saying D-Mac is disposable. He's not. But he wasn't in Brooklyn for a week and he got re-upped. 4 years, $48 million, I think it was. At the end of the day, it's a good deal. It's a good deal for him. But then he goes out in his first game. I think he had 3 catches for 60 yards or something. So again, 3 guys most recently go out and get contract extensions. Deandre Wilkins Jr. goes out and get, what did we say, $283 million, throws up a donut. Thank you very much. Deandre Machiavelli, who I traded to Brooklyn, gets the bag. 4 years, $48 million. He's going to be a mainstay in Brooklyn. They're super excited. Coach Baxter is super excited. I get it. Goes out first game. He's probably not thrilled with the output. He's certainly not thrilled with the outcome. I don't know how he feels about the performance of Deandre Machiavelli. I believe he didn't get his first catch in that game until like the third quarter. But then there's Buck Ulbrich, who didn't get picked to be an RFL top 100, who I had to choose between him and Deandre Machiavelli as to who was the bigger priority and which guy I wanted to make sure I signed in before they became a free agent. Little old Buck Ulbrich just sitting there minding his own business. 7 catches, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. After he got his extension. Buck Ulbrich goes out 4 years, $68 million. Obviously had to pay more to get Buck than I would have to keep Machiavelli. But I just didn't envision a scenario where I was going to keep Buck Ulbrich, Deandre Machiavelli, Last Chance, Damani Manuel, and Griffin Whiteside. Now, with Machiavelli out of the equation, I think I'm looking at the possibility of bringing back all of those guys. All of them. Not to mention, I got a second-round draft pick in return, plus an upgrade on the offensive line, and the wide receiver, Kendall Booker, is just going to slide in place of Deandre Machiavelli. Sure, he's not quite as good. Okay, I'm not going to argue that. He's a little bit older. He's a little bit more of a veteran, but he's going to fit nicely in the slot. And now I can move Pavel Frederick out to the outside. I like Pavel Frederick more on the outside than I did as the slot guy. But everyone wants to hoot and holler. I can't believe you traded Deandre Machiavelli. And there it is right there, Anthony Fry. He knows. We talked. This is the great part about being in the league and being active in the league and being a part of your team's front office and being a part of the day-to-day. Yeah, Anthony Fry is a player on this team. But you know what? When I get to the point where I am staring down the barrel of a very big decision, I'll call him. Hey, I'm looking at this. What do you think? I might not always agree. He might say yes. I might say no. At the end of the day, I've got the final say. But it's important and it's great for you players to have that. For those of you that want that, right? Not everybody wants that. Some people just want to be a player and just want to watch their player and that's it. They don't want to deal with anything else. Me having someone in the front office to help with some of the day-to-day scouting. Look, we get together on calls and break down film and say, hey, we got these guys coming up next week. We got these guys the week after. Let's watch this film and see what we can come up with. Where do we want to focus our training? These are all conversations that happen throughout the week. They're going to start happening probably tomorrow. So Anthony Fry, I know you're out there. Hopefully you got some time for me tomorrow. That's why, guys, that's why the RFL is so much different. No, I'm just going to say it. That's why the RFL is so much better than the college series. And I know you guys didn't get it during the college series because that's what mattered right then and there. It was super exciting. But now you're realizing it's so much more exciting in the RFL. You've got actual coaches. I don't coach a team in college. I'm not out there saying, go Georgia. Ever. I don't coach any of the college teams. We don't have as much of a vested interest in the college series, other than from a scouting perspective. So I say all that to just, again, for those of you that are interested, that would like to get involved with an RFL team in some sort of realm, we do have channels on Discord for you to reach out to. If you have an interest in being a part of a team's front office, maybe one day you want to be a coach, you can reach out. You can certainly do so. And I would applaud you for doing it. What else we got? Let's take a look at some stats leaders, right? I know you guys are big fans of the statistical world. So I'm going to pull up, before I do that, actually, I've got a list here of after week one, right? It is what it is. It's only 1 week. And it's only the ARC because, again, I don't have, outside of daddy leagues, and it's a little bit more time consuming and elaborate. So I'm probably, unless I can get someone from the NRC that wants to help me out with it, I'm probably not going to do it as much. I will focus on the ARC, but I do have the ARC league leaders for passing. So I have the passing leaders, the rushing leaders, and the receivers for the ARC after week one. So I will have that breakdown for you. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a chance. We got anything in the chat going on right now? I haven't had a chance to as much. Look, we got Xavier Beckford out there in the chat. What's good, buddy? Good to see you out there. Anthony Fry, get active. Awesome Crocodile Productions. There it is. I try to watch every game. Now, look, not everyone does. Not everyone can. I can't even do it. I mean, I watch as many games as I can. Quite honestly, if it's an NRC game, unless it's a big matchup that I'm intrigued by, those are the games that I'm probably taking off, because the NRC, I don't have much vested interest in anything NRC related, unless maybe I'm looking for a guy that I want to trade for. I'm not going to play an NRC team until the Reload Bowl, if I make it to the Reload Bowl. So on a night like on a Thursday night, if both games are NRC, that might be my night off. But then again, my night off consists of watching our film or upcoming teams' film to try to figure out what we want to do for that next week's game. Anything else? Anyone else out here in the chat? What do we got? We got CC, Big Buck. Yeah. Big Buck is right. Rapid Fire Gaming. You guys know what that emoji is. That's not a goat. It's not a deer. It's a buck. For Buck Ulbrich, a top 100 RFL player. And mark my words, at the 30-minute and 13-second mark on January 11th, 2022, Buck Ulbrich will be a top 10 wide receiver in the RFL when this season is over. I can't believe he's not already. Look at this, my boy, already about to dive into the Armadillos film. That's what it's like, especially because we have the Armadillos 2 weeks in a row, basically 2 weeks in a row, 2 games in a row. All right, so let's get to some of the stats here. Passing leaders for the ARC. There were some big time performances. I mentioned Chum Lee had a 4 touchdown outing against the Orlando Sentinels, but here's a look at the quarterbacks that are leading the ARC after week 1 in terms of passing yards. Here we go. Jake McBride for the Portland Riverhogs, 368 yards passing. Glenn Hay with an absolute monster. That Voyagers game, if you had a chance to watch that, that was the game against the Brooklyn Bulls where Deandre Machiavelli just didn't show up until the third quarter. 356 yards for Glenn Hay. There's Chum Lee coming in third, 299 yards. And then Devin Wade of the Armadillos and Joseph Torres of the Bisons round out the top 5. Now, one thing I will say here is Devin Wade's performance, 274 yards. Okay, fine. The Dillos didn't look very good. So that 274 yards is kind of glorified. The performance wasn't that great. Joseph Torres, the Bisons looked pretty good, but the biggest takeaway from that Bisons game, the Bisons and the Armadillos played each other. The biggest takeaway from that Bisons game is not Joseph Torres. The biggest takeaway from that Bisons game is actually part of this list right here. And these are your running back rushing leaders for week 1. Kadron Lusk, 182 yards on the ground for the Bisons. I don't care what Joseph Torres did. Kadron Lusk carried that team. And I am significantly more concerned with the Oklahoma City Bisons today than I was 3 days ago. I did not anticipate that. I did not see that coming. And Coach Frankie and I, Coach Frankie being of the San Antonio Dreadnoughts, are probably thinking the same thing right now. This Oklahoma City team might be significantly better than we originally thought. 182 yards on the ground for Kadron Lusk. Kingston Kenny for the Aviators had a $165. DJ Scott, the newly acquired DJ Scott. If you remember, DJ Scott was in the NRC last season. He was a part of the Portland Snowhawks. They could not and would not re-sign him. He became a free agent, and the Red Dragons scooped him up. In his first game in San Diego, 123 yards on the ground. Not a bad first impression for DJ Scott. Gunnar Witt with the Voyagers. Gunnar Witt's not even the best running back on that roster. And he put up a $122. And then Carlos Berry for the Dillos, 111 yards on the ground. So some key performances there, most notably Kadron Lusk and DJ Scott. Kadron Lusk obviously nearing the 200-yard mark. DJ Scott in his first game as a member of the Red Dragons. Big-time performances there from those two guys. And then lastly, on the offensive side of the ball here, I'm going to get into the receivers. And I say receivers instead of wide receivers because Luis Luciano is not a wide receiver. He's a tight end, and he's an absolute monster. He is a 99 overall for the Austin Armadillos, and he had 126 yards receiving in that game against the Oklahoma City Bisons. Armand Holland, 129. And then there's your boy, everyone's favorite deer hunter, Buck Ulbrich, 125 yards receiving. The Cougars, Tavon Bryson, 122. And the Dreadnoughts, Mike Mart, also had 122. Now, it's worth mentioning here that the Cougars and the Dreadnoughts did not actually play an RFL game. Those were force wins. So the Cougars, Tavon Bryson, and the Dreadnoughts, Mike Mart, didn't actually play an RFL team and get 122 yards. take that for what it's worth. Sometimes during the NFL force wins, you're going to get good stats. Sometimes you're not. Chumlee it could be a force win, and Chumlee could have 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. Or it could be a force win, and Chumlee could have 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. You never know. It has a lot to do with the team you're going against. It has a lot to do with your playbooks and your scheme. So again, the Cougars and Dreadnoughts did not actually play this weekend. So don't think that you missed that game. Oh my God, I can't believe I missed the Cougars game. You didn't miss the Cougars game. You didn't miss the Dreadnoughts game. Their first game of the year will be this weekend. So there's a look at your top 5 receivers in terms of yards. Now, I'm not getting into anything defensive quite yet, mostly because it's too early in the season. It doesn't really make any sense to go over interception leaders right now because nobody has more than 1. And for the most part, there's like 2 or 3 guys. That's it. Everyone else is tied with 0. That's just stupid to make a leaderboard for that. And then sacks I could do, but really it comes down to Joe Keys of the Houston Voyagers had 5 sacks. Antonio Griggs had 4 sacks. And then I believe there's a few guys that had 2. That's about it. So I'm not going to get into any of that yet. I'm going to wait until at least week 2 is over and possibly even week 3. I might even wait until week 3 to get the defensive guys out there, just because at that point we'll start to see some accumulation in terms of interceptions, sacks, certainly, especially if Keys and Griggs are going to put up 4 to 5 sacks or 3 to 4 sacks a game. We could be looking at, I'm going to have to look back. Maybe there's someone out there that can do some research and find out for me. I'm going to have to find out what the sack record is. Like, what is the record for most sacks in a season? Because I think that there's some guys, obviously, like I mentioned, Keys and Griggs out the gate with 5 and 4 respectively, that could put them in position to maybe make a run at the overall sack title. But that's it for your stat leaders right there. So again, quarterback, Glenn Hay, Jake McBride led the way. Chumlee rounding in at 3rd. Kadron Lusk, 182 yards. DJ Scott, 123 in his debut with the Red Dragons. And then Buck Ulbrich, as I mentioned, big time game, 7 catches, 125. Luis Luciano is a name that you're going to want to watch for the Armadillos, especially if you like watching the ARC South. If you like watching the Miners, you like watching the Dreadnoughts, we're going to play the Armadillos twice. Luis Luciano is the heart and soul of that receiving core at the tight end position. And then Armand Holland, a $129 for the Aviators. So a lot of big time performances there from some big time players. Week 2 is coming up. We don't have a game this week, but there are going to be some teams that didn't have a chance to play this week that will be in action this week. So if you are looking forward to the Cougars or you're looking forward to the Dreadnoughts, you'll get to see those guys for sure this week. So that's pretty much it. I gave you all the update on Anthony Fry, which is nice. As you can see here, originally thought to be 4 weeks that he was going to be out. He's only going to be out for 3 weeks, which is week 2, week 3, and week 4. And week 2 and week 4 are force wins. So the only actual game that Anthony Fry is going to miss will be that week 3 game at the Austin Armadillos. So I have talked to him. We have talked about that and some things that he can do in the meantime. But again, nice to see that Anthony Fry isn't going to miss that extra game, because that extra game would have been an actual RFL game. So good to have him back that 1 week earlier. So that's going to be good. Last chance to get out to the chats. What do we have here? Darius Hodge, I can't believe you're talking about Pokemon. That'll be the last time anyone talks about Pokemon on this show. Otherwise, you will get booted. Yeah, Lusk was great. Hope the brother gets better and comes back stronger. I assume Xavier Beckford's talking about his boy Anthony Fry. So all right, that's pretty much good in the chat. I'm going to go and bring this back. I know we haven't done it in a long time. It didn't really make a lot of sense when it was the off season. There wasn't a lot to talk about. The college series was going on, but there was a lot more to just talk about in general with the college series. And because producer Rohan had to take a little bit of a hiatus, I just decided that, you know what, let's just not do it. And let's just wait and we'll bring it back when the time is right. Well, I guess the time is right. And so without any further ado, I will go ahead and bring in producer Rohan as we will go down. We'll go through 4-down territory with producer Rohan, who is now joining me. What is going on, buddy?
Hey, what's good, Coach John? I'm ready to go back to 4-down territory, man. I've been missing it.
All right. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with 4-down territory, this is basically where producer Rohan comes up with four hot topics that I don't really have any privy to. I ask him to come up with 4 topics and I give him a chance to hit me with them. So I don't really know where he's going with this. So Rohan, first down, what do you got?
Yeah, so first down, I just got this idea after the Monarchs Shams game yesterday, Shamrocks. That's how I like to call him. But Tom Wilson versus Preston Schroeder. This just got me thinking that this has to be one of the best quarterback duels in all of RFL. I just wanted to get your take of what you think, historically. I've only been following this league for a little bit. What the best QB duel in RFL history is?
So that's a difficult one for me to answer only because I'm only on 2 years in the league. Quite honestly, what I can tell you is I'm not the biggest fan of Preston Schroeder. So I'm certainly not going to say I haven't watched as much Tom Wilson film. Again, NRC teams, I just don't get a chance to watch as much simply because I'm too busy scouting and going over film and everything for the ARC teams and the teams that we actually will play against. The NRC teams we're not going to play against. Maybe someday we will. That'll be super exciting. In a perfect world, we will get a 32 team universe where we can actually have, cross conference rivals like that. I guess if I'm going to pick one, maybe this is a little bit of recency bias, but I'm going to go with Marquise Washington and Geno Gannon.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Only because one, they were the duo that everyone talked about in college. And 2, they got drafted both to the ARC and both to the ARC North. So now Geno Gannon and Marquise Washington will play each other twice a year, every single year for the foreseeable future. So I guess I'm going to say Marquise Washington and Geno Gannon, and that Aviators Cougars matchup is probably must-see TV every single time that they play.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Second down. What do we got?
Down. Just the biggest surprise of week 1. There's whether this is, an upset of the week, or just someone who just showed out and you didn't even see it coming. Like Daryl Johnson of the Columbus Explorers. I was kind of surprised that I thought he would take him a while to, fit in with just being in the RFL. And he just looked really comfortable out there. You could also put out the Voyagers just taking it to the Brooklyn Bulls. I think they won by like 45 points, if I'm correct. So those would be my top 2 surprises. But for you, just like the upset that you were not expecting, or just someone who just, played really well that you weren't expecting to.
All right. So my biggest surprise was the fact that Anthony Fry got hurt, because that's killer. But I would say The Voyagers' performance against the Bulls was pretty surprising. Not because I don't think the Voyagers are that good, but because I thought that maybe the Bulls would show up. I think they just maybe, I don't know. I remember my first game in the league and the emotions. As a matter of fact, my first game as a coach in the RFL was against the Bulls. That was Deandre Machiavelli's 3-touchdown game in week 1 last year. I don't want to say that was too surprising that the Bulls lost. It's tough being a new coach. I think, what was kind of surprising for me? I'd have to go back and look at the line, but I'm going to give him props, and he might be listening right now. Jacob Mccall for the London Black Knights stepping in. Granted, it was a sim, it was a force win, so it doesn't really matter for much. But I'm going to give him some credit. A rookie quarterback, and I believe the force win gave him 350 yards passing or something as a rookie. So, that's impressive. But I guess if I'm going to go with, let me think. Now I got to think about some of the games we watched. What else did we see out there? What do we got from Glenn Hay? Didn't necessarily surprise me. You know what I would probably say? Nacho Cheese, tight end for the Houston Voyagers. Tight ends are big in the RFL. And big, I mean, they're important, not necessarily big. You see a lot of the best tight ends in the RFL are not actual big blocking tight ends. They're guys that catch the ball. And Nacho Cheese for the Houston Voyagers had 3 touchdown receptions in that game against the Bulls. And I believe he had, if memory serves, I remember watching that game, and I believe he had 3, maybe 4 catches of greater than 30 yards, which is just not normal for a tight end. And it's not that they were 20-yard catches and he ran for 15 or 20 more. Some of them were 35-yard balls down the field. Like Nacho Cheese was just beating defenders, beating corners, beating safeties as a tight end in this league. So that to me was pretty impressive. And without having too much time to really think about it, I'd say that was probably my biggest takeaway was the performance of Nacho Cheese against the Bulls.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of, players showing up, I just want to get your take on which specifically rookie showed up.
Okay, so I'm going to give special props to my guys, right? Jakari Torres, 99 yards on the ground in his first game. We get to see, we didn't get to see Cam Perkins because the Dreadnoughts didn't play. That was an exciting one. Jacob Mccall, we didn't really get to see play. DJ, yes. I don't think his performance was fantastic. We didn't get to see who else started. Leo Moon didn't play. Any other running backs? Really, I have to go back and look. I don't remember how well Amir Williams played for the Steamers in that game against Portland. But I would say, I think you're probably going to be hard pressed to find a rookie that performed better than Jakari Torres, 20 carries, 99 yards, or Pavel Frederick's 5 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Darius Hodge got in the end zone, which was nice. It was good to see him get in the end zone. But yeah, I would say, I know that's kind of, I don't like to pick my own guys here, but you'd have to show me a list of all the rookies and all their performances. And maybe, do you have one in mind? Have you looked at some of the rookie performances? Because I can't really come up with one that is glaringly like a punch in the face better than Jakari Torres or Pavel Frederick.
Yeah, I can't really think of one either. I mean, besides our rookies, I can't really think. I think Amir Williams did pretty good.
Did he? So I didn't get a chance to watch that game.
Mhm.
Let's see if we can pull it up. Do you have it pulled
But
up?
also, I think DJ played pretty good. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to look so comfortable out there. I know you may not be that impressed with him, but I thought he played well.
Let's see what we got for. Let's see what we got here for. Oh, he's not showing on the roster. Is that old? That's the old list. I don't think that the Explorers. Do you have the new Daddy Leagues up?
No, not yet. I'm gonna pull it up.
I'm behind. I'd have to see the total line for. Yeah, this one doesn't have it. This is the old link. It doesn't have. Michael King had 13 tackles. Josh Hardy was disruptive. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard on a weekly basis to give that nod to defensive guys unless they do something like 13 tackles, a forced fumble, a fumble recovered, or 4 pass breakups and an interception. By and large, the offensive guys are just going to carry more weight. It's not fair. I get it. It's not fair to the defensive guys, but one, offense, the majority of people probably care more about offense. It's just a fact. And 2, when watching these games, a lot of times you don't get a chance to see what the defense is actually doing, right? A lot of times the camera takes you completely away from where defenders are making really good plays, right? You could have Lito Loso shutting a guy down. You could have Chris Paul killing a guy, but you don't get to see it because the ball went to the opposite side of the field. And you never really see that in the stats. You never really see that in the post game either. So, it's kind of tough. A lot of times we're going to lean towards the offensive rookies, but certainly 13 tackles from Michael King, that's going to put you up there. I guess I'd say from the defensive side of the ball, you could probably give it to Michael King. The offensive side of the ball, I would probably give it. I don't know. I mean, people are going to want to give it to DJ because it's quarterback. Again, the quarterbacks are always going to get the first look. I think Jakari Torres carrying the ball 20 times for 99 yards and if you watched our game, he looked really good on a lot of those runs. And then I think Pavel looked good too. Obviously, 5 catches for 55 yards. I'd like to see a little bit more, but I mean, look, if you told me that Pavel Frederick was going to get 5 catches for 55 yards every single game, right? We're talking about just shy of 1,000 yards, right? So if you told me Pavel Frederick was going to be a 1,000-yard receiver in his rookie season, I would tell you that that's a great season and he might get some votes for Rookie of the Year. And if you told me that he was going to catch 5 passes every single game, then you're talking about 85 catches. So, maybe he comes up a little bit here and there, but you're talking about on this team, Pavel Frederick being close to 100 yards 100 receptions and 1,000 yards receiving. And I don't know, at least at the receiver position, and we'll be able to look at this more and more as the weeks go on. I don't know at the receiver position if we're going to get very many guys, very many rookies that are putting up those numbers. You got to remember, a lot of these rookie receivers are buried on the depth chart. Ryan LeCavalier, 3 catches for 84 yards. That's great yardage. That's on pace for 1,000 yards. But are you going to get 84 yards on 3 catches every single game? That's a very good yards per catch average. 5 catches for 55 yards, that's more in line with what you would expect. 3 catches for 84 yards, that's a little bit aggressive. So if you're going to get 84 yards on a weekly basis, Ryan LeCavalier, I would anticipate you needing more like 6 catches or 7 catches to get there. Maybe certainly 5 catches. But I don't think 3 for 84 is going to be an every week thing unless you're just absolutely nailing the deep ball on a weekly basis, and Lecavalier's got the speed to do it. So maybe he will. All right, that's enough on third down. What do we got for fourth down?
Yeah, so fourth down, I just want to, when the Miners have game week, I will use this fourth down as my pick score prediction for the Miners game. But their Miners got a force win this upcoming week, so I'll be saving it for next week. But I thought for this fourth down, I would give you my player of the week, and this will just be the Miners player, like equivalent to your gold star that you give weekly. This would be my player of the week, but I don't want to jump on the bandwagon. I'm not going to pick, the obvious player. This is going to be someone, who just, is there and plays really well.
Are we talking about
so
performance? Are we talking about performance last week?
Yeah, so my player of the week will be from this past Sentinels game. So I'm not going Buck Ulbrich. I know he had 100+ receiving yards. I'm going to go with Jakari Torres. I thought rookie first game, he was drafted, I can't remember exactly. You probably know what round he was drafted in.
Second round. Yeah, him and Pavel were both second round picks.
Yeah, so we already got Damani Manuel, right? So he's gonna carry the full workload of the being the first string running back. But I didn't expect this guy Jakari Torres. I just expected him to get a few carries for like 10 yards or something. I didn't expect him to get more carries than Damani Manuel and more yards than Damani Manuel. So I gotta get hats off to Jakari Torres. I mean, I didn't see this coming. I don't know if you did, but I have to ask you first your thoughts about, Jakari Torres and if, this was a good pick by me, and why did he get more carries and yards than Damani Manuel?
So first and foremost, this is why being a coach in the league is so great. This is why the RFL is, again, so much better than the college series, because we get to manipulate the roster, right, on a weekly basis. So no one, Rohan, you're correct. You didn't anticipate Jakari Torres putting forth 99 yards or getting the ball 20 times on the ground, because nobody did. Everyone expected him to be the backup. Damani Manuel he led the ARC in rushing last season. He's a top 3 running back in the ARC, probably a top 3 or certainly top 5 running back in the entire RFL. So that was part of my plan, was to not overwork him for 2 reasons. One, I felt confident in Jakari Torres. I spent a month, and Anthony Fry can vouch for this. We spent a month simulating games with Jakari Torres and comparing and contrasting where Jakari Torres could benefit the most and where he could help the team in areas that you might not normally expect. It's not a matter of, okay, Damani Manuel is my RB1 and Jakari Torres is my RB2. And the only time Jakari Torres is going to get the ball is when Damani Manuel is tired or gets hurt. That's not the way that it is, right? So Jakari Torres is going to be a contributor on this team. There's going to be several games where Jakari Torres is going to get more carries on the ground than Damani Manuel. But again, that's also because we have designed and schemed accordingly so that Damani Manuel is going to be a producer in the pass game. So I don't want Damani Manuel. The days of Damani Manuel getting 30 carries, right? Like if you watch the Miners last season, you saw games where Damani Manuel had 26, 27, 28, 29 carries. That's not going to happen this season. Damani Manuel might get 25 touches, right? But that's because he's going to get, 13 carries or 14 carries, and maybe he'll get 10 receptions. 10 receptions is aggressive. But maybe he'll get 14 carries and 5 or 6 catches. That's where I want Damani Manuel to be, because Damani Manuel, if Damani Manuel starts catching passes over the middle, he is burning. He's gone, right? And so that's where I'm excited to see Damani Manuel. I know a lot of people are looking at the box scores and looking at it saying, wait a minute, Jakari Torres, 20 carries, 99 yards. They scored 36 points. What did Damani Manuel do? Damani Manuel not even listed. He didn't do anything. Damani Manuel's there. And don't get it twisted. Don't think for 1 second that Damani Manuel is not a huge part of what's going on. Yes, Jakari Torres got more carries. Yes, Jakari Torres got yards. But Damani Manuel, without Damani Manuel on this team and the impact that he has, Jakari Torres doesn't do that. So I'm super excited. I think Jakari Torres is a great pick. I'm bummed that he didn't get his touchdown. I'm even more bummed that he didn't get that one extra yard. I remember seeing it with about 2 minutes left. He had 93 yards on the ground, and I was begging for him to get 7 more yards because I remember last season with Damani Manuel, I think Damani Manuel last year had 4 or 5 games where he was between 93 and 100 yards, and he just couldn't get the 100-yard mark. Damani Manuel only had, I think, 2 games last year where he was over 100 yards, but he had like 6 games where he was at 92 or 93 or 96 or 98. And then when he did get over 100, he got like 160 or 175 or something. So I think that people need to recognize that this tandem of Jakari Torres and Damani Manuel is legit. And I was impressed with what Jakari Torres did. I wasn't super surprised by it. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out. And again, there's always the thought, I mentioned this earlier, and we talked about it months ago. Damani Manuel is a free agent at the end of the year. I don't know what those negotiations are going to look like. So I'm going to do everything I can to put this team in the best position moving forward. And hopefully that means Damani Manuel is here for several more years. But there are financial constraints, and I don't know what's going to happen. So I am preparing for Jakari Torres in a worst case scenario to be able to take over as an every down back next season. And so I'm going to get him some touches. I want him to develop. And if that means getting him 20 carries, well, that might be strong. I was surprised that he got 20. I didn't anticipate him getting 20. I expected more of like a 15-15 split. And I think it was 20 for Jakari and 9 or 10 for Damani Manuel. Ideally, I would like that to be a little bit more even. I'd like to see it a little bit more 15-15. But we'll see. We got a week, basically 2 weeks to prep for the Austin Armadillos. So I'm going to go get to work.
And I have to ask quickly as we wrap things up here on 4 Down Territory, should Miners fans and fans of the RFL get used to Jakari Torres getting a lot of carries, or is this just one thing, too small of a sample size to know that Jakari Torres is getting a lot and more carries than Damani Manuel? Will Damani Manuel, and Jakari split, eventually, and Jakari Torres won't be getting the full workload?
I mean, I think I alluded to it a little bit a minute ago. I ideally would like them to be a little bit more split. Obviously we game plan and we put formations together with guys in certain positions. And at the end of the day, it really just comes down to our play calling. And, I've got, believe it or not, there are more plays for Damani Manuel. There are more plays where Damani Manuel is the running back than when Jakari Torres is the running back. But this particular game, it made sense to ground and pound. I mean, look, bad weather game, right? I'm impressed with that because it was a bad weather, rainy day. And in those games, I want my power back running the ball. In crappy weather like that, I want to see more ground game. I want to see more rushing attempts. And Jakari Torres is that guy. He's that ground and pound kind of guy. So I'm not super surprised that that's the way that it went. But yeah, I would say I don't expect Jakari Torres to get 20 plus carries every single game. I think he'll get 20 carries, occasionally. But I wouldn't expect that on a weekly basis. But you never know. Depends on the matchup. I can't give
Yeah,
away
and I know
all the secrets.
Yeah, I know some people may not be happy that I took Jakari Torres as my player of the week. There's Antonio Griggs who had a monster game.
Yeah,
If you take this small sample size, he's on pace for, I don't know, like 50, 60 sacks. But that's crazy. That's going to even out in the end of the season. Buck Ulbrich, Chumley. But I have to go with someone who's, just under the radar a little bit and is, overlooked or a little bit, and it needs to get the respect. So this week, it was someone who we didn't expect to go crazy, but I thought Jakari Torres played really well. So in the future, it's going to be not just going to be, who your gold star is or someone who just is the obvious pick. It's going to be someone who's, needs to get more respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Antonio Griggs is on pace for 68 sacks. For those of you keeping score, for those of you counting at home, that's really good. And I'm willing to bet that the RFL record for sacks in a season is less than 68. I'm going to say I'd bet a lot of money that it is not 68. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this week. I got to get to work. So, as a matter of fact, I'm going to let you go. You got anything else before I let you go? You good?
Yeah. I mean, good luck to you. You're gonna start game planning now, obviously, for the
Probably.
Armadillos week 3.
Probably. I mean,
So
this is the day that we have. Basically, this is the off day, right? Today and tomorrow are the off days, and then Thursday, depending on the games, scouting those games. Friday, Saturday. So Tuesday and Wednesday are really the big days to get some game planning in. So I might try to get together with Fry later on tonight if he's around, and see what we can do.
yeah, I mean 2-0. You can't ask for a better start than that. Obviously,
Look,
undefeated.
and I said this, if you look at the schedule, and I'll pull up the schedule here. When the schedule was released, I talked about this. I said, I will pull that banner down. I
Yeah, let
said
me do
that
that.
the schedule is lined up so that when we get to week 11, we will have 9 games under our belt, technically. Week 10 is our actual bye, I believe. So when that week 11 game comes around, or really, I should say after week 9, when week 9 is over, there is a decent chance that this Miners team is 8-1. And there's even the chance that we're undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to be 2-0 heading into week 3. That Armadillos team has some flaws. We saw some holes. Them twice in a row. So at the end of week 5, there's a realistic chance that we could be looking at 5-0. Week 7, we have the Bulldogs. Now, the Bulldogs looked good. The Bulldogs are very improved over last season. But then week 8 is going to be an automatic win. And then week 9, we have the Bulls in what's going to be a great matchup and a great reunion between Deandre Wilkins coming to play his old team. I think that's going to be a fantastic game. I hope that that's a primetime game. I'd have to look at the schedule. I don't remember.
It better be.
I don't believe that it is. It's a bummer. Maybe we can get Commissioner Smitty to flex that game to a primetime game because we got Deandre Wilkins versus his former team. I think that's a big game. But the Bulls didn't look good against the Voyagers. So realistically speaking, the only game on there that I could envision us losing, I don't think there's a game there that we're not going to be in. I think every single game there, we're either going to be winning or we're going to be in it until the end.
But I mean, you could say that for all games here. I mean, even that week 11 to 17 stretch, you got some crucial divisional games. The Celtic Tigers is the only one that stands out you that's you were probably going to be, underdogs in, but still you can still compete with them. I mean, you could say that you're going to compete in all of these games.
Yeah, but there's just some of them like the Armadillos game, if we aren't winning that game handily at the end of the third quarter, we've done something wrong. There's something wrong. Chumlee has too many interceptions, or someone has turned the ball over. That's the way that the Armadillos are beating us.
I'm assuming what Chrome is saying is the Bulls game is on a Sunday, so that's automatically, there's only 2 games on Sunday, so that's going to be a prime time game.
So that's a big game there. Week 9, that game against the Bulls, that will be a live broadcast game. That's going to be a big one. But really, I'm looking at this and I really do think that when that week 9 game is over, I think this Miners team is going to be 8-1. And I think that it's going to be a random game. Like, I think that we're going to be able to handle business with the Armadillos. And I maybe the Bulls show up. Maybe Damani Manuel, I keep saying Damani Manuel. Maybe DMAC has something to prove against his former team. Maybe Coach Baxter will right the ship by then. Or maybe the Bulldogs are just that good. I'm not, I'm assuming, I'm saying there's a really good chance that we could be 8-1 at the end of week 9. And I'm assuming that one loss, I'm just giving us a loss because I don't want to say that we're going to be undefeated. So I'm giving us a loss, and I would say that the most likely game in there that we would lose is the Bulldogs game. But that's it. Like there's a strong chance that we're talking about 8-1 or 9-0 with this Miners team, and that's exciting. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. All right, Rohan, I'll get you out of here. Appreciate it. We'll start working on 4 down territory. Make sure you got some time set aside for the games this week. Mm-hmm. And look forward to getting you on again next week.
All right.
All right, buddy. I'll see you. Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. All right. Rohan, the producer, back at it for 4 down territory. Appreciate the contributions from him. So that's going to do it for me, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at MinersRFL on Twitter, at MinersRFL on Instagram. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please be sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. I believe we're somewhere in the upper 80s in terms of subscriptions on YouTube. Remember, when we get to the 100 subscriber mark, I will give away a free t-shirt, an RFL t-shirt to one lucky subscriber. So be sure to make sure you and everyone you know is subscribed. If you're a fan of the RFL, if you're thinking about joining the college series next year, be sure to subscribe to Miners Live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But that's pretty much it. That's going to do it for me, Coach Dunn of the Sacramento Miners, general manager of the Sacramento Miners. I will be back with you guys next Tuesday at 8 p.m. for another edition of Miners Live. Take care, everybody.